The rumor is back. Kathleen Kennedy is going to be fired. This time, the rumor is a little bit different, and there is some interesting evidence to support it. Words directly spoken by Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy herself. We're going to get into that in just a moment, but I have to ask you, the viewer of this video, who has the most blame for Star Wars being a failure? Now hang on a second. Is Coach defending Kathy Kennedy? For sure, no way. And as for the question, I know that you already have an answer and may be heading to the comment section to let me know as you were hearing the question. But I ask that you listen to this one all the way through, and then please give me your thoughts. Here we go.
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Mono, buddy. 3
Echo Station 3TA.
Star Wars has probably been the number one thing uniting nerds for nearly 50 years now. But over time, and especially since the Disney purchase, the luster has been wearing off. We used to argue about interesting things, yet trivial matters in Star Wars. But since Disney has purchased Lucasfilm, the arguments have definitely become more controversial. Do you remember when the original trilogy and prequel trilogy fans argued and were at odds? By the way, nothing will ever beat the original trilogy, guys, so stop trying. Back to my point. It wasn't until the sequel trilogy came out, under Disney, that prequel and original trilogy purists were united. And we were united against a common enemy, Kathy Kennedy, Rian Johnson, and J.J. Abrams. The fandom was united for a brief moment when Luke Skywalker returned in The Mandalorian Season 2 finale. And throughout this time, people have been mostly pinning the blame on President of Lucasfilm herself, Kathleen Kennedy. We've heard rumors about Kathleen Kennedy's forthcoming firing as the president of Lucasfilm for years now, and honestly, it should have happened years ago. I mean, seriously, how many times has Mike Zero fired Kathy Kennedy at this point? But the rumors have piped back up again, and we will just have to wait and see. Since the acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney, many believe that Kennedy was just some nobody placed in charge of the whole operation with no knowledge of anything about films in general or specifically Star Wars. She was a big-name producer in Hollywood. Kennedy shaped the industry for the better by producing films such as the Indiana Jones movies with Spielberg, and was the executive producer for the Back to the Future films, Goonies, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and so much more. Throughout Spielberg's Indiana Jones era, Kennedy worked closely with George Lucas on the company's films. And in 2012, Lucas made Kennedy the president of Lucasfilm when news broke out he was selling the company to Disney. But it also begs the question, if she is so celebrated in the film industry, why is she so hated in the Star Wars community? The simple answer, Star Wars has not been in a good place, and she's the president. Since its acquisition, Lucasfilm has had to pump out one movie per year that is more friendly to Disney executives and shareholders because of a schedule placed years in advance by Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney. However, this schedule is quite destructive, and it rushes movies out the door before they are finished, removing any chance of ironing out kinks the films might have. This time frame placed incredible amounts of pressure on Kennedy, and she must maintain a balance between reaching the impossible deadline given to her and producing good films. A lot of people do seem to forget how short the time frame was between each Star Wars release. The Force Awakens, Rogue One, The Last Jedi, Solo, and then The Rise of Skywalker had to be released a year from each other or less. For perspective, Solo was released 6 months after The Last Jedi. I'll never forget going to the movies to watch Solo. I had absolutely no care for the film at all because the bitter taste of The Last Jedi and how it was still in my mouth. This film schedule fatigued moviegoers and tainted their reception of the franchise, and Kennedy has taken the fall for all of Star Wars blunders, as she is the figurehead of Lucasfilm. During the Star Wars Celebration event that occurred on April the 10th, Kennedy stated that Star Wars films will be released when they are ready to be released, and that each premiere would be eventized. Does Kennedy need a miracle to save her job? Rumors have been circulated that she might be fired from her position if she cannot produce a film every 2 years, and that's the new rumor. Kennedy recently announced during the Star Wars Celebration that there were several films on the way, such as The New Jedi Order Era, a film that is said to be set 15 years after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, and which we will see the return of Daisy Ridley as Rey Skywalker in the new film. So who's more to blame? Does it even matter? Will Kathy Kennedy be fired? It's true that Bob Iger wanted a Star Wars film every year, It's also true that Kathy Kennedy couldn't get good Star Wars made with those time constraints. Is it Bob Iger's fault? I would say no. If your boss gives you a deadline, it's up to you to get the job done, period. I remember when Iger publicly admitted that the one film a year release schedule was a mistake, and that fans were suffering from Star Wars fatigue. He was actually wrong there. Fans were suffering from bad Star Wars movies. So now, Iger is demanding a new Star Wars film every 2 years. Kennedy, in a rather interesting interview, clapped back and said that films will be released when they are ready to be released. And she likened her release schedule to that of James Bond, which has a release every 2 to 3 years, sometimes 4. We'll see what happens and if Star Wars will ever improve. If it doesn't, this beloved franchise that George Lucas masterfully put together will die. Thank you guys for coming to Echo Base Network today, where we will continue to hold Lucasfilm accountable and demand a return of great Star Wars. As we always say here, we are, you are, Echo Base Network. May the Force be with you, and we'll see you guys on the next one.